First of all, what I have is my browser closed, which is not a good start, so bear with me. So our example scenario here is a company that's it's already got a pre-existing data warehouse built from some sales and some marketing information. They've pulled that together into kind of a sales orders system. And we're going to look at that on a baseline, and then we're going to go through the process of what happens when the business requests a change. Remember, the problem we're trying to solve here is the business is going to be requesting changes very rapidly. So what we want to do is take a process that would typically take days or weeks and try and reduce it down to hours or even minutes. Unfortunately, the Wi-Fi here is also kind of slow. Okay, so let's have a look at... So right now I have this sales orders database, which you probably can't read, unfortunately, so if I can zoom in a little bit. On the left-hand side, I have the sales order database, and I have those layers we saw. I have our ingestion layer, our curation layer, our calculation and consumption layer, and if we just focus on the consumption, we see we've got a few different ways of consuming this data already. So we're not starting from fresh. Yesterday I started out with an empty system and built a complete data warehouse from scratch. Now we're saying we've got a data warehouse in place and someone's asked me to make a change to it. If we visualize that through a documentation system, this is kind of what it looks like, and it's that same diagram I showed previously, just rotated 90 degrees. So on the left-hand side, we've got all of our sources, this is where we're ingesting from, and you can now see graphically how these models inherit from each other, and you can see where all of the joins and the merges and the transforms are happening. Now there's an interesting looking model on the right-hand side here called fact sales order, which we're going to come back to in a minute. But this is our baseline, this is the system we have. Let's look at our scenario. My boss, a business stakeholder, comes in and says, I need the lifetime value in the minutes since last order per customer. And I need it in production because we're losing money every day from not having it, and therefore I need it by tomorrow. And anyone that's working in this space will recognize this as the totally unrealistic request that people get every week. So where do we start? Well, we saw that we had this sales order table that looks like it may have the information we need in it. So let's go and have a look. Let's go and view the documentation for this. So we know we want it by customer ID, and we've got that. I'll zoom in a bit here. We know we want the total order value, and we've got that. And we know we got the order date. So we've probably got the right information in this model to answer the question. If we just go back to the overview, remember that big SQL on the left-hand side, what we're trying to do is achieve this new business requirement with the fewest, smallest, simplest changes possible. So I don't want to recreate all of this stuff over here. I've got a consumption model that already has the data in it I need and is already inheriting from a whole bunch of clever work on the left-hand side here. I just want to reproduce that model and make a few changes to it. Inherit from everything on the left-hand side. So I'm going to try and do this live. And I apologize if this is not visible at the back. So, the first thing I've done is create a branch. For those of you that are not familiar with Git, basically creating a branch is a way of creating a little sandbox. I've just said I'm taking the main code base that builds all of this, because all of this is built from code. Like I did in the demo yesterday, I built an entire data warehouse just from code. I've taken that code, I've created a copy of it, or a branch of it. There's a little sandbox for me, this is where I'm going to do my work. Now that in software development is pretty straightforward. The additional piece we need to do here is, this is a data world, so just having the code is no good. I need to be able to see the effect of that code in a real data warehouse. So what I'm going to do here is deploy my code, but rather than deploy it to production, I'm going to deploy it to an empty database. So I have, if I look in here, an empty database called dev customer experience. And you can see there's no schemas, no tables in it. So I'm going to deploy that, and I'm going to update my documentation. And what this is doing is a baseline. I'm now creating my own complete standalone sandbox that's a perfect replica of production. If I want to make some changes, first of all, I need to know what I'm making changes to, and I need to be able to see the impact of those. So I'm building a complete replica of the production data warehouse in my own little sandbox that no one else can see, no one else can touch. And more importantly, when I mess this up, which I will because I'm human, and I definitely will because I'm on stage, I can't impact production. I'm in my own little safe sandbox. So we'll go and refresh the documentation. The documentation shouldn't change, because all I've done is say, take that thing in production and create a copy of it in my own little sandbox. So this should look exactly the same. Then what I'm going to do is say, well, I know that this fact sales order model has got the information I need in it. So I'm going to create a copy of that, and I'm going to try and make my changes to it. So I will copy this bit, and then I'm going to bravely make the changes by hand. Okay, so I've duplicated my sales order model, and I've called it the customer experience status model. And if we edit that, we can see, well, you maybe can't see that, I apologize, the red on black doesn't work very well on the screen. It's got all the information I needed, but it's got a bunch of stuff I don't need. So the first thing I need to do is say what I want this to be called. So I'm going to change this to customer experience status. I don't need the sales order number. I do need the order date because I need to know how long they ordered. I need the total. I need the customer ID, so I can get rid of everything else. I'm going to put the customer ID at the top, and because I want a result per customer, I'm going to put a group by one. So I'm going to group by customer. So what's going to come out here is a record per customer. And if I remember, we wanted the total value, so I'm going to call this total lifetime value. And then I wanted the number of minutes since they last ordered. So I need to do a difference of the date in minutes between the current date and the maximum, i.e. the most recent order date. And I'm going to call that minutes since last order. Now I could choose to redeploy this entire thing, but that took a few seconds, and if this is massive, that might have taken a few minutes. So what I'm going to do is deploy just a new model, because I know only one thing's changed. So I'm just going to say, deploy the model called customer experience status. And with a bit of luck and a following wind, so what it's doing, first of all, it's compiling that to make sure that it's valid, that all of the integrity works. Now it's deploying it to my data warehouse. So we can actually go and see that in practice. Now remember, I'm still in my sandbox. I haven't impacted anybody. If I made a mistake, which was very likely, I haven't done anything to impact anybody else, but I can now see, in addition to the other stuff, I've got this new, well, okay, it's ignoring the typos. I've got this new table, and if I look at it, I've now got customer ID, minutes since last order, and lifetime value. Now, I could at this point deploy it into production, but this is not my first rodeo. I've been here before, and I know what customers are like. I know what stakeholders are like. How often has this turned into this? Oh yeah, I know that's what I asked for, but it's not really what I want. This is a fact about customers and stakeholders, is they don't know what they want until they see it. Rather than deploying to production, since I now have a perfect replica of my production database with my changes, I can sit down with the stakeholder and say, is this what you asked for? Oh, well no, I also need the average order size and the number of items. Okay, well that's fine. We've seen how quickly it was to change it from scratch. I can add a couple of rows to this, and in fact this is so quick, rather than having to schedule meetings with stakeholders, it now becomes legitimate and feasible to sit your stakeholder down next to you and do this iteratively. You want to do that, you want to do this, you want to change it, and every time I make a change, I can redeploy the entire thing to a perfect replica of the production environment. They can see exactly how it looks, they can change their mind. You know, we're agile, we shouldn't be afraid of change, we should be embracing stakeholders changing their minds, because ultimately they're changing minds for good reason. It's going to be better for the business. We shouldn't fight it, we should embrace it. This means I can sit down with a stakeholder, and in 20 minutes I can do 30 or 40 iterations of what they want. Once I get them to the point where they're happy, then what do? I'm not going to go through this workflow. First of all, I would create some automated tests. We treat our data warehouse modeling and transformations the same way we treat source code, which means when we commit a change, we also commit a test for that change. So creating automated tests is as simple as the creation of the code. I haven't done it, but we would create some automated tests, we'd commit that alongside our code change. I'd then commit that change and then I create a pull request. People are human, people make mistakes, the best people make mistakes. Every smart developer I know will refuse to check in code unless one of their colleagues has checked it. They can be the most experienced developer in the world, they know that they will make a mistake one day and they want one of their colleagues to peer review it. So I create a pull request and one of my colleagues checks my code. If they're happy with it, they approve it. If they think there's something that could be improved, they let me know and I make those changes. Once they've approved my 4 requests, it's merged back into the develop branch. So I'm now off my little sandbox, I'm now into the main develop branch. This will be promoted to QA and a set of automated tests. Remember I said we check in our tests with our code. So we don't just deploy stuff to production hoping it's going to work. We deploy stuff to production knowing through a set of automated tests that when I deploy it, it will work. That's one of the critical things about treating everything as code and following a software development lifecycle for data is when I push to production, I know it will work. I don't hope it will work. If it passes, we promote to master. That promotion can be manual or it can be automatic. And then finally, we deploy master into production. And you've seen how quickly it is to deploy. I just do my Palladium deploy and it pushes everything from the repository into the data warehouse. I could do that now. If I drop to the target dev customer experience, I could push this into production now. I wouldn't, because I'm not following the right life cycle, but the action to actually push it into production is no different to pushing it into my sandbox. And this is a true case. We normally have to compromise. We normally have to say, I either want to do it faster, or I want to do it safer. But speed is the enemy of safety. Speed is the enemy of trust. If you follow a proper software development lifecycle for data, you genuinely get the holy grail of it is faster, but it is also better, more robust, more secure at the same time. You get both of these, you don't have to compromise.